Hi, I'm Regina Anderson. I am the Executive Director of Food Recovery Network, headquartered in Washington, D.C.
Regina, just to start out, what does Food Recovery Network FRN do, and how does it work to recover food or reduce food waste?
Food Recovery Network, we work with college students all across the country to recover surplus food from their dining halls and from surrounding businesses, restaurants. We also go to event spaces, we go to farm fields. So we take all of this surplus food, this really good food that otherwise would have been thrown away. We collect that food and then we donate it locally to nonprofits that help feed our community. And we also activate the business sector as well. So corporate dining, again, farm fields, events, civic centers, to also create a recovery program unique to their locations to recover that really precious food and donate it locally.
Just for more context, what is the scope and the scale of the work that FRN does?
FRN was started about 10 years ago, actually, by college students from the University of Maryland. And over time, they created a recovery program at the University of Maryland, and through grassroots efforts, grew that recovery program to other colleges across the country. So flash forward to today, we are on 186 campuses across the country. We're in 46 states, including Washington, D.C. And so all of our students, they have recovery programs in their college campuses. They conduct education programs. They have different events all around educating their communities, their student body around the effects of hunger in their communities and what happens when we throw away all this precious food, the deleterious effects that it has on our environment. To date, we've recovered over 5.3 million pounds of food. And I know that's a number that's really maybe hard for us to conceptualize. But I will say, if we think about it in terms of human beings, that's converted into over 5 million meals for people who are suffering from food insecurity in our communities.
And I think even beyond that, one thing that's so powerful, I always think about the ripple effect and just the fact that you have 186 chapters. And that means there are so many young people, so many people who are going to be leaders who will prioritize and even just be aware of this issue of food waste. Why is youth leadership so important to you? I know that it's something that you prioritize in your own career journey.
You're absolutely right, Matt. It is because of that ripple effect. We call it the student effect. When students engage in things that they're passionate about to help make our communities better, to help make the earth better, to be a net positive, in all of these different ways. When students do that work among themselves, instead of having a quote unquote adult, telling you what to do, the motivations are just completely different, and that ripple effect reverberates even further. So our students are, talking to one another, getting people hip to the concerns that we have with practical solutions of how you can be involved, today, right away. But also they toe the line of, when we think something is wrong, when we're asked to sort of have this, covering over our eyes around all these different problems that we should be able to see. Students are often the ones, young people are often the ones that say, no, we're not going to do this. And I just really want to be part of that. I want to help support that. I want to be engaged with folks who feel that same way. It's just such a wonderful thing to, be, hooking your arms together with young people.
I'm sure there are people who are watching who are wondering, like, how do I get young people, how do I get people in general to care about food waste? Because thinking about it, if we're lucky, we'll have 3 meals a day and food goes to waste. If not once in those meals, maybe throughout all of those meals. So how do you and how do you in your work get people to care?
For us, it's authentic relationships. That's how we get people to care. We're not trying to wag our finger at anybody. We have so many conversations with people who come to FRN and they say, we're putting on this event and oh my gosh, we've never recovered our food before. And we're so embarrassed by how much food we know we've wasted in the past. And we always say, don't worry, you're calling us now, you're in touch with us now. And that means today you can make a difference in the lives of people who are suffering from food insecurity. So there's a few things. So it's authentic relationships, having an open heart, an open mind, being creative about the unique situations that anyone person might be facing, when it comes to how can I tackle this? And then we really do break it down into very simple steps. You don't have to feel like you need to solve the full problem. And then as people get more and more like sort of, using this new muscle of knowledge, then you can kind of, bring them in a bit further to other areas of the work, so that we can begin to see the full system that's designed in such a way that so many people are hungry. So you can just build different bridges based on people's personalities and how they want to come into the work.
Yeah. So how are you feeling about the future when it comes to the work that you're doing?
I always say, Cornel West says it best when he says he's a prisoner of hope. And I'm the same way. I have infinite amounts of hope, and I see every single day that there is positive change that is happening. And it is wonderful to work at an organization that is centered around solutions, and it's centered around equity, it's centered around dignity and respect. So it's hard to say no to those things, And so at FRN, we want the opportunity to recover all of this precious food that our farmers have grown, that people have transported, that people have picked, to all of our farm workers. Shout out to all of our farm workers. That there's so many things that we can do that is solution oriented. With that, I do see, to use your word again, so many different ripples of solutions and different ways that people are solving that in their own communities. When we know so many people don't have the food that they deserve, that's hard. That's a hard place to be in. But when we can engage in these activities to, with dignity, do the right thing with our food, it does add this like ray of light and lightness. And I think that's also a very positively contagious element to the work that we do.
Whether it's food waste or some other problem when it comes to our climate, any advice for that person who wants to do something like
the first thing I would say is, thank you to that person for even wanting to explore and be curious about how they can help. I think that is a huge first step. So there's a few things, I would say, see if there's a Food Recovery Network chapter in your area. If there's a higher education institution, of which most communities, there's one fairly close by, see if there's a chapter. If not, get in touch with us. We want to help, create a chapter in your community. We can also think about, our local restaurants. I know right now we're living through a pandemic, but there are a lot of restaurants and a lot of events that are happening. Do they have a recovery program in place? And if not, again, we can do that work. You can just be the, hey, FRN, I know about these different organizations that have food. Can you be in touch with them? Also, at the individual level, there's a lot of resources out there. I have many videos myself on how to preserve our food so we're not throwing that away, in our individual homes, having group meals to like take, eat our leftovers, things like that. So there's like really fun ways that we can also be stewards. There's a really great movement that is happening in some communities where either restaurants or convenience stores will put out a refrigerator. The community stocks that refrigerator with food, with fresh produce and vegetables, for people to come and take whatever they might need to ensure that they have the food that they need for that day.
I also know, just as a follow-up to that FRN has like so many different organizations that you partner with. Could you talk about like what are the different parts that those partners play?
So we engage with different partners in a variety of different focus areas so that together, we can really redesign, innovate, rebuild, stop, start, different parts of our food system so that it works for everybody. So for example, I'm going to name some names. ReFed is a research organization, as is Food Tank, that provides a lot of information and collects a lot of data for organizations like FRN to use and make decisions. And FRN is also a data-driven organization, but we have to get our data from somewhere. So we love those two organizations. One really awesome nonprofit that I want to shout out is Hungry Harvest. And so that's Gary Oppenheimer. He's in New York. It's also a national organization. And this is for the 23 million people who identify as growers. So people who have maybe even windowsill basil or have a garden in their backyard. when whatever it is that they happen to be growing at their own homes produces too much for themselves, for their friends and their families, you can go to the Hungry Harvest app and find a food pantry, a homeless shelter where you can bring that fresh produce that you've grown. It's a wonderful, a wonderful organization that is also engaged in recovering food with us, making sure people get fed. Project Drawdown, we love you guys. Again, the different solutions that you have that people can see themselves, in the work for sure. We partnered with the FarmLink project. This is another student-driven nonprofit that works on commercial farms to glean the produce that is on those farm fields, meaning after harvest, there's oftentimes so much food, 23 million tons of food every year, 23 million tons that's left on farm fields for a variety of reasons. So FarmLink goes through to identify where these farms are, then they pay the farmer for their time, for their transportation costs to bring whatever surplus food they have on the farm field to nonprofits that can use that food to feed the community. So through FarmLink, we've been able to recover over 1 million pounds of food in our last program year. It's wonderful. So what are some other partnerships that we can have to help our communities across the country that don't have enough economic security? There's 42 million people who are food insecure, and a driver of that is they don't have enough economic security to obtain the food that they need consistently for themselves and for their family. So when we think about systems change, when we think about partnerships, these are some of the identifiers that we know of that can truly unlock people, so that they can more fully participate in our society, and care more about the environment and ensure that they have the energy that they need to, again, be fully participating in our society.
Is there anything that you wish that just your everyday person who's watching should know about reducing food waste?
Absolutely. I think the thing that people should know is that this is very much a solvable issue. I don't even want to say problem because that sounds scary. That we can do this together at the individual level, at the community level, at the policy level. So Harvard Food Law and Policy Clinic is another really great organization. If people want to get involved with, what's happening at the community level, that, where we can tighten up our processes so that we're not throwing away food, so that we can make it easier to recover food than it is right now. Currently, it's really easy to throw food away. So we can do things, at the individual level to make it easy to recover that food. And so I really want people to feel unlocked. It's about the process. It's not about perfection. Perfection doesn't play a role here. Even myself, sometimes I don't get to, every little piece of morsel of food that I have, but I do have a compost bin, another solution that Project Drawdown highlights, and so I don't want people to feel like if I'm not doing this perfectly, then I shouldn't do it at all. Absolutely not. One small step, as I said earlier, can really make a difference. So, it's about, we get into our cars, we get into, other modes of transportation. We wear a helmet when we bike. We wear our seatbelts when we get into a car. We recover food when we have extra food. I want it to be, that sort of synonymous with, how we think about our food, our precious food all across the country.
Thank you so much, Regina, for your perspective and for being part of this World Food Day dialogue. And if you haven't already, please go back and watch our conversations with Leah Lizarondo from 412 Food Rescue, with Alex Garcia from World Central Kitchen, Tony Lee from the Pinterest Pin Cuisine team, with Cesare Assad from Food System 6, and even go back and watch this conversation with Regina again. If there's one thing I could leave you with, it is to recommend that you take time to learn and immerse yourself more in climate solutions. Find the solution that works for you. But one thing that I'd encourage is that you find your role when it comes to climate solutions in order to help the world reach drawdown. You could do that at drawdown.org/solutions, or go to drawdown.org and check out Climate Solutions 101, which is a video series with 6 units hosted by our executive director, Dr. John John Foley, and 10 expert interview conversations where you could immerse yourself into more of the aspects of climate change, global warming, and climate solutions. Everyone has their own real-world superpowers to bring to the table when it comes to climate solutions. There isn't a one-size-fits-all approach, and we at Project Drawdown are excited to see all of the ways that you take action and you help the world reach drawdown. Thanks for watching.